Good morning, everyone. This is Pradeep, Ambassador of Change from GETI, Lucknow, the Global Education and Training Institute. We are the premier training institute, teachers training institute all over India. And we are thankful to our mentor, Dr. Sunita Gandhi. It is her brainchild. We have many pre-service and in-service programs for which you can go to our site or ring us up on 740-840-1000. You are on our disruptive education platform. On this platform, we have interacted with more than 1,000 educators from India and all over the world. And today we have for you Mrs. A. Jahitha Begum, Gandhigram Rural University, Dindigul, Tamil Nadu. She is an MA in English, an MA in Political Science, an MEd, an MPhil, a PGDCA. She is a Praveen in Hindi and a diploma. She has a diploma in Urdu and she is a PhD. She has participated in 20 state, 50 national and 5 international seminars as a resource person and has attended 75 national, 15 international conferences in England, Scotland, Sri Lanka, China, UAE and Saudi Arabia. She has completed projects for the UGC, NCERT, ICSSR and the MK University, etc. She is a member of Psycholinguistics, Indian Journal of Psychometry, Modern Education Research in India, Journal of Open and Distance Learning, University of Kashmir. She is a member of several bodies like the Psycholinguistic Association of Agra, the All India Association for Educational Research, the AIAER, a National Science Congress, amongst others. She specializes in cognitive science and communicative competence. She has published in 90 journals and books in India and abroad, 5 international journals, 17 books published by her. She speaks English, Tamil, Hindi, Sanskrit, Urdu, and Arabic. She will be speaking to us today on brain and language. Thank you, ma'am Jahitha, for being with us, and over to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Respected mentor of Global Initiative, Education Training Initiative, Dr. Sunita Gandhi, and respected Pradeep and dear audience, teachers, teacher educators, friends, youngsters, research scholars. Indeed, it is a great opportunity to me. I thank Almighty for having given this opportunity to meet you all, and I thank the organization who has arranged these valuable programs that disseminating the knowledge from many aspects of education and promoting the leadership qualities and leadership in applying the knowledge among the community. So I thank once again for having given this opportunity to me, and let me speak today's topic, brain and language, neuro-linguistic perspectives of language learning. There are 4 new avenues of 21st century knowledge, and they are called 21st century knowledge base. The first one is information and communication technology, next biotechnology, third one nanotechnology, and the 4th one cognitive science. Yes, cognitive science is the science dealing with how the brain learns, brain science, what are the cognitive abilities and what is the connection between the brain and cognitive abilities, how the brain is performing various mental activities. So this 21st century is witnessing lot of developments, advancements in the field of knowledge. And as far as the cognitive science is concerned, there is no cognition or knowledge but for language. So language is considered to be very important aspect of language knowledge, that is cognition. And language is the species-specific possession of human beings. No other animal on this earth speaks language as we human beings we speak the language. So we should know as teachers or as educationists, we should know the role of the brain in language learning or acquisition or speaking and other aspects of the language. What are the brain parts that are associated with language, speaking, listening and other skills, as well as how the language aspect is governed by the brain. So thanks to the technology, thanks to the nanoscience and especially the neuroscience, the developments which are taking place in the field of neuroscience, it helps us to know more about our brain. There are many working models as far as our physiology is concerned. We know very well how the heart is functioning, how the lungs are functioning, how the kidneys are functioning. Even our students can demonstrate how these organs are functioning. But till today, how the brain is functioning, what is the function, the mechanism performed by the brain is not at all revealed or known to anybody. Only 10% of the brain functioning is revealed, whereas the 90% of the brain functioning remains unraveled. So, dear friends, today we are going to see how the brain parts and brain are responsible for language and language learning. So, language is the medium through which one has impact on other people, isn't it? But for language, there is no communication, there are no disputes also. So the mind influences through language is the most enchanting process. And when you ask our students, especially the school students, they will say, which is the tough subject to learn or which is very difficult to learn. They will say mathematics or physics or chemistry. But actually speaking, the cognitive science point of view, the cognitive scientist will say today that language learning is the highly cognitive task. Suppose if a person knows many languages or if anybody is good in language, in communication skills, in reading or writing, that shows that person is very intelligent person. So language learning is a highly cognitive task and it is very difficult. Whereas in most of the schools and colleges, the language aspect is very much neglected and they are giving attention to the other subjects like science subjects and other subjects. And language also depends upon the person's perception, isn't it? We used to gather our knowledge in the form of language only, either written or oral. But language influences perception. Whatever we perceive the world, it is through language only. So, language is the fundamental aspect of cognition. And human beings possess a unique speciality in their brain. That is, the Almighty has created human beings with a brain. That means He created humans' brain with lab, L-A-B, that is language acquisition device.
Ma'am,
Animals
excuse
understand
me,
the
ma'am.
language,
Ma'am,
whereas
excuse
they do
me.
not speak the language, they do not
Ma'am,
create the language. Is that
excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am, your PPT is not moving. Yeah, okay, it's moving now. Thank you.
now? So human beings possess the unique capacity of language acquisition that shows they have the unique capability of language. So it has a unique kind of abstraction which is basic to cognition. And whatever information we receive through our senses, through our auditory or visual information, that is processed by our brain. So brain has the unique capacity to process the language. Most of the time we receive in the form of written language, oral language, and we read sometimes, or most of the time we read. So this is the information that the brain receives, the language inputs, they are processed by our brain. And the information is received and stored in our brain. And whenever we need it, we will retrieve the information and the brain will process the information. Like a computer, isn't it? Now after the advent of technology, we compare our brain with that of computer. Whereas the computers are designed after seeing our brain. So brain is a supercomputer which cannot be compared with any other superfast computers. Till today, no computer is invented like that of a brain. Even people are doing that. They are trying to bring out the intelligence in the machines in the form of machine learning, deep learning, etc. on seeing the brain's superpower. So, dear friends, now you can very well say that language learning is the highly cognitive task than any other learning. And suppose if I am a master in one particular language, that means I have to discriminate the sounds, I have to understand the suprasegmental features of language like stress, intonation, rhythm, and I should be very good mastery of words in that language. I should know the grammatical aspects of the language. Then only I will say that I am a very good person or I am a master of that particular language. I may be called a Praveen in that language. And this language, if you see how it is used, what is the connection between language and thinking, how the language is used for problem solving and all, it deals with different aspect of different discipline that deals with these aspects. They are called psycholinguistics.
Ma'am,
So
it's not moving. Ma'am, you're okay.
I
Now it's
think
okay,
if
ma'am.
I play the PPT, it is not moving. Now it is moving, sir.
Yeah, now it's moving. Yes.
No. So I will start with this, like this, without
Okay.
going for slideshow. So psycholinguistic is the discipline which deals with psychological aspects of language and what is the connection between language and thinking, what is the role of brain in language acquisition and language production, comprehension, etc. etc. So it is a very important discipline of linguistics. There are many branches of linguistics like psycholinguistics which deals with psychological aspects, social linguistics which deals with sociological aspects like how a person is speaking in a society, in a group or in privacy like that. So there are pragmatic aspects of language, how the language is used. So this particular psycholinguistics deals with mainly the connection between the psychology and language or the mental states and language and how the language is acquired and governed by our brain. So brain is a wonderful organ, amazing organ created by our Almighty. It weighs roughly 1.4 kg and almost the doctors may be knowing the parts of the brain and other things, but sometimes we will think, why should we know? Why teachers should we know about the parts of the brain? Of course, we are dealing with many kinds of brains in our classrooms, isn't it? daily we are connecting with many kinds of minds. So we should know, like a two-wheeler mechanic, he knows the parts of the two-wheeler, and four-wheeler mechanic, he knows the parts of the two-wheeler. Like that, we the mechanics of human beings, human students, we should know the parts of the brain also. So the brain is divided into two hemispheres, left and right hemisphere, and each hemisphere deals with each part, each aspect of cognition. So when the major parts of the brain we can see cerebrum, cerebellum, brainstem, and in that we have limbic system, cerebral cortex, and all. So here each hemisphere in this picture, you can very well note that each hemisphere is divided into four lobes: frontal, parietal, occipital, and temporal lobes. So these are the four lobes. We have frontal lobe. Just immediately, if we go backside, we have the occipital lobe that is just behind our eyes. At the two sides of our ears, besides we have the temporal lobe. At the top of our head, we have the parietal lobe. So the brain, each hemisphere has four lobes. And where is the language? Where the language is parts are working in our brain. Especially we can see there are four or five parts which are very important for language learning. And of course, the whole brain is working for language. If I am good in languages, I have to use whole brain. Both the hemispheres are working. But especially certain parts in the brain are very important. One is Broca's area, next Wernicke's area, angular gyrus, and motor cortex and visual cortex. And it is interesting stories are behind. And Broca's area is known after the scientist who invented this particular part of the brain in 1860, a Russian doctor. And Wernicke's area also, like the people who invented that particular area. Previous days there are no scanning techniques and all. Today we have a lot of scanning techniques like MRI, fMRI, EEG and all. We know very well how the brain is working. At present, living brains can be studied. But previous days, those days, the brain regions can be identified by the doctors only after the death, that is after the postmortem or autopsy. Now the brain scans are helping very much. Suppose if I want to test which area of the brain is involved in reading, comprehension or speaking, then his brain may be connected to a computer monitor, and the brain scanning technique like fMRI and EEG scanning techniques will reveal which part of the brain is working now. It is very easy now. But previous days it was very difficult, and only the scientists, doctors, they struggled a lot to identify which part of the brain is responsible for speaking. Suppose now I am engaged in speaking. I am speaking. Am I spelling the sounds of English properly or not? That means I have to articulate the speech organs inside the mouth, in the pharynx, larynx, and all the speech organs must coordinate and pronounce. So for that particular work, I should have the Broca's area. Broca's area, it is there. It is pointed here. Broca's area, it lies at the frontal lobe, and it is almost nearer to our ears, and whatever we hear, it will go straight away to Broca's area, and the Broca's area, the Wernicke area will understand, comprehends the language, and the Broca's area will give the motor aspect of the language. Suppose I want to pronounce the words, sentences, whatever it may be, it is the responsibility of the Broca's area, so it is called motor area. Whereas this Wernicke area, this is responsible for understanding the meaning of the words. So this is Wernicke area. Here you can see the primary motor cortex. Motor means movement. And there is one more area, angular gyrus and auditory area. So likewise, the brain, in this picture you can see the important areas which are responsible for our language comprehension, pronunciation, etc. So the Broca's area controls our speech. Wernicke area, it interprets or it is the understanding part of the language. Here, angular gyrus, it transforms the visual representation. That is, suppose if I am reading a book, this area is responsible for transforming the visual representation into auditory code and understand the meaning. Then visual cortex, whatever we see, reading, written words, written information, everything from this particular area. And this is the motor cortex. So, these five parts of the brain is very much essential for a person to speak the language, to understand the language, to read and write it everything. Like that, there are two hemispheres. We have left as well as right hemisphere. These two hemispheres, they also have a major share in our language, in our speaking, in our other aspect. The language is not an easy one. Some people are quiet, some people are good in writing, some people are good at speaking. So everything depends upon the particular part of in our brain which is responsible for particular aspect, that is cognitive task. For example, if you take this left hemisphere, it is adept in detecting surprise and it processes the information, the written information or the auditory information, it processes in a relational manner. Most of the time, our Broca's area lies at the left side of the brain. That's why people used to say the left hemisphere is responsible for language learning and all. So, left hemisphere is very important in language learning, and the right hemisphere also. The rhythmic aspects, visual, seeing the visuals and the imagination, isn't it? Poets and the story writers, they write their imagination. For that and all, this right brain is playing an important role. And you know, most of the 95% of the human beings are left brain dominant. That means they are writing with their right hand. And 5% of the people are right brain dominant and they will use their left hand for writing or will do the work. So the neuroscientists today revealed that language is governed by both the hemispheres, and one hemisphere is the dominant hemisphere and the other hemisphere is the minor hemisphere, non-dominant. That does not mean that the hemisphere is not working, but the hemisphere also working. But the left side people are more dominant, hemisphere dominant people are more visible. And this minor hemisphere, it is responsible for perceiving the non-linguistic environmental sounds, and it is responsible for comprehension of visually presented words, and like that this hemisphere also certain roles to do here. Suppose a person, nowadays we know very well that some of our students have this problem, that is language problems, language learning difficulties, and language disabilities also. Difficulty is different and disability is different. Disability means they have some brain challenges in their brain or problems in their brain functioning that can be cured only by medication or only by consulting the doctors or by taking the surgery sometimes. So, language disabilities cannot be cured 100%, but language learning difficulties can be managed by the teachers or some experts. So, if I have some problem in language, speaking skills or writing skills, that problem is called aphasia. For example, if somebody's Broca's area is affected, that leads to problems in speaking, especially people who have got this paralysis and all. that particular part, the Broca's area, left side of the brain may be affected, and due to that they could not speak. They will speak mentally, but their voice cannot be heard properly by articulation of their speech sounds and all. So this is called Broca's aphasia. And the Wernicke aphasia, that is the Wernicke area in the brain which is responsible for understanding. Suppose a person is speaking. If I am speaking now, if that thing is not cannot be understood properly, means there may be two reasons. My language may be poor, or my explanation may be poor, or the particular brain part, Wernicke area, may be impaired. So Wernicke aphasia denotes that Wernicke area is improper or impaired, due to which a person cannot have the understanding properly. So what is the result? He may speak fluently, but it will lead to nonsensical speech, no comprehension at all. That is called sometimes echolalia. That is, he will, whatever we say, he will repeat properly, because his Broca's area is very good. Broca's area, which is responsible for articulation of words, speech sounds, etc. Everything is proper. That's why he is speaking properly. He can repeat like a parrot, but he cannot speak sensical speech. He cannot speak proper understanding with proper understanding. So there are many language learning problems like aphasia due to the impairment in our brain. So dear friends, totally these two areas, Broca's area, already I informed you that Paul Broca, a doctor, who invented this particular part of the brain after the death of his patient, and that in this area is named after Broca, Paul Broca. So this is situated in the lower part of the frontal lobe with the left hemisphere, that is near the motor cortex, and this is partly in the prefrontal area. Prefrontal area, that means the forehead. This is the prefrontal area, and this is very, very important in everyone's brain, because this particular area develops only after the age of 20. That is, especially in the teenagers, this prefrontal area is poorly developed. Only the children and adolescents, they don't have this prefrontal area properly developed, and it develops only after 20. This area is playing a dominant role in decision making and planning and all. That's why our youngsters, especially the adolescents, commit lot of mistakes. Even sometimes they will be carried away by the emotions and they will commit suicide and all. So this
There seems to be a broadcast problem from Madam's side.
yes, sir, I think. Now it is okay?
Yeah, it's okay now, ma'am.
Ah.
It's okay.
So Broca's area play an important role in the language learning, and you can see here this picture where exactly the Broca's area lies. So here is the Broca's area, and this is the frontal lobe, our forehead portion. This is our forehead portion, and these frontal lobes play an important role, and this Broca's area is here. So these two areas play important role in our movement of speech organs and articulation of speech sounds, and it provides neural circuit for word formation, isn't it? We have to Suppose if I am adept in one particular language, I should know more number of words, vocabulary. So the neurons which are responsible in that area, they should form a connectivity, neural network that is called neural circuit. Brain's function is not so far revealed because of the neurons. Neurons, they are very, very tiny aspects which cannot be even viewed under electron microscope. That's why neuroscience, what is happening in our brain is not revealed completely so far because of the neurons functioning is not revealed properly. You cannot see directly how the neurons are functioning and all. So only from 1990, the research in neuroscience or in the brain science started in the well-developed countries like UK and US. And this 10 years, 2020 to 2000 onwards, 10 years has produced very good results in brain science and all. And now these results are going on, and these research brain science has to do a lot in computer science and artificial neural network. And this word formation is very important, and the Broca's areas are responsible for pronouncing the words. Likewise, I have given another important area in our brain that is responsible for language acquisition learning is Wernicke's area. So it is near the temporal lobe of our ear, in the left hemisphere. So normally the people who are very good in language, for them the left hemisphere is very dominant. So this Wernicke area is known by many names. It is called general interpretative area, Gnostic area, knowing area, tertiary association. These are all the names which are given for Wernicke's area, because if there is no Wernicke area means in our brain, we could not understand anything. We could not we can without comprehension or without understanding the written text or the auditory text, whatever we hear, whatever we see, if you want to understand the meaning, this particular area is very much responsible, very much essential. So this area closely associated with primary hearing area. That means it is just behind our ears. That is auditory cortex, and this lies in the temporal lobe. Temporal lobe, it is besides our ears. So the understanding goes with hearing or seeing. So this area is responsible for our comprehension. Here you can see in this picture, here Broca's area is somewhere here and Wernicke area is somewhere here. So these two areas play a dominant role in language learning. So it is situated in this temporal lobe, whereas here it is the Broca's area is in the frontal lobe. These two areas are connected with a bunch of fibers that is called arcuate fasciculus. That is called arcuate fasciculus. So in the interpretation of the language, Wernicke area is important, and it used to store the concept that we learn. Isn't it? We learn concept of the concept. Suppose in first standard I learned mathematics, second standard I learned some other aspects of mathematics, then some other aspect of some other geography or whatever it may be. So after class by class, I understand the concepts and store in my memory in the form of thinking or thoughts, in language aspects only I store. And this area is responsible for speech recognition and formation for the meaning aspect of production also. So in short, we can say this part is, but for Wernicke's area, there is no language at all. And this arcuate fasciculus is the bundles which connects these two important areas. One is Broca, another one is Wernicke's. These two important areas are connected with the help of the fibers, bundles of fibers, and this is responsible for simultaneous translation. That means I read a particular text, I understand the meaning with the help of my learning area, and suppose if any answer is asked in either in the form of written or in the form of auditory, the Broca's area is helping me to articulate the speech organs, and I am writing the answer with my hands. So this is responsible for simultaneous translation, and the auditory input is rapidly converted into speech output. Isn't it? So these two areas are closely associated with this arcuate vesiculus, and meaning formulation to speech is via arcuate vesiculus. Here you can see. So this is Broca, this is vernix. These two are connected with the arcuate vesiculus. So dear friends, so far we have seen the two important areas, or three or four aspects of language aspect. One is Broca, vernix, arcuate vesiculus, and next we are coming to the Broadband's area, another a small important area for language aspect, that is Broadband's area. It is involved in relating visual and auditory input to meaning representation, and it is responsible for the movement of articulators. Especially it controls speech aspects of the oral tract. So this is also very important, because whatever language we are speaking, most of the time we speak. In the history of human mankind, the knowledge is transmitted via mouth, oral knowledge only, then only the written form. Written form is just 5,000 years old, isn't it? The oral form of language is the historical and very old aspect of knowledge. So this Broadband's area play an important role in speaking or oral formation. Okay, now another important aspect of language area in our brain is thalamus, and this is the important organ in our brain, the important part in our brain that is responsible for receiving the information from our body and transmitting the information to brain and vice versa. That is, receiving from body impulses to the brain and receiving the brain impulses and transmitting to the body. So it acts like a sensory relay station, and likewise, like the two hemispheres we have, both the hemispheres we have this thalamus, and it integrates frontal and parietal language learning areas. So thalamus is also responsible for speech production, maintaining focal attention to specific and specifically verbal aspects of external environment. So these are all the aspects that given by the language experts as well as the neuroscience experts. So dear friends, most of the time we hear the language. If we hear the language, that auditory input of the language, it will be processed by primary auditory cortex. That is the area which is near to our ears. That is called primary auditory cortex. And you can see in the picture that primary auditory cortex is here near our temporal lobes. So visual cortex will process the visual information, and auditory cortex will process the auditory information. So both the cortex, as well as primary visual cortex and the auditory cortex, visual cortex is responsible for visual information, that is through eyes, and auditory cortex responsible for auditory information through ears. So both are important in the language learning aspect. So this brain, all the brain areas are almost involved in any cognitive activity, whereas now the neuroscientists can locate which area is responsible for visualizing, which area is responsible for hearing, even which area is responsible for thinking. And suppose if I see good pictures, very pleasant pictures, which area will process the pictures that is pleasant, very good and very happy mood like that. But suppose if I have any uh, unpleasant pictures and all. These may be processed by different areas. So now it is very much possible for the technologist to spell out which area is responsible for which cognitive function. Now it is very well, to some extent it is very well possible to name. So frontal lobe, temporal lobe, both the lobes are involved in language aspects, like the occipital lobe just behind our eyes, they are also responsible for language learning. For example, naming the objects. Occipital lobe in our left hemisphere, it is responsible for scalar perception of verbal material and naming the objects. And temporal lobe, it is responsible for naming the objects, and it is also responsible for comprehension and intelligence. So in short, if the brain is not properly functioning, there may be some problems in the language learning. Some people are capable of speaking properly, whereas they are not very well in writing. Some may be good in writing and they are not properly in speaking. So even our political leaders emerged only because of their communication skills. So if anybody is good in their communication skills, that shows that the major parts in the brain, it is okay for them. And if anybody is not up to the mark in reading or writing, there may be some problems in their brain parts which are responsible for it. And now the neuroscientists, now they say many new aspects of language learning. For example, in Japan language, the L sound, what we pronounced L sound in Indian languages, is not there in the Japan language. That's why the particular brain area which is responsible for pronunciation of la sound is not activated in Japanese brains. So see, the advent of technology now is helping us to find out the reasons why some people are good in language and why some people are not up to the mark in their language, or what are the difficulties possessed by the human beings like dyslexia and some other problems, many aphasia in languages and all. So the special education, the special educationist, now they are dealing very well with the language problems and all. So coming to the last aspect of our presentation, that is one more area in brain, that is angular gyrus. It is located in the occipital lobe. It is responsible for the visual perception or the written perception of the language. Suppose there are some visuals, there are some written books. We have to read pages and pages. So the visual perception depends upon the functioning of this particular area, that is angular gyrus. So the visually presented text will be processed by this particular area in our brain, and then it goes to the Wernicke area for interpretation, for comprehension. So we have to know these areas are very, very important in language aspect. And prefrontal area, already I told that PFC, it is also playing a dominant role in language, that is for our thinking, for our decision making, for our emotional aspects, and for our emotions are very important in speaking. Suppose if a person is emotionally disturbed, the language output will be hindered or will be prevented properly. So these emotions are gateways of any learning, especially in language output like speaking or writing. So this limbic system, which is responsible for emotions, all our emotions, whether they are good or bad, always bad emotions will hamper the brain function. whereas the good emotions, positive emotions will help us to carry away many important tasks. So always it is very important for us to keep our brain very healthy. We should not uh, we should not create trouble to our brain by thinking with negative emotions. We should not lead the negative emotions to carry away our brain activities and other things. If we want to do really harm to our brain, definitely we can do with the help of negative thinking, negative emotions, and negative thought. So always we have to think good, we have to do good, and we have to speak good also. So always our brain must be filled with positive emotions. The brain, there are many neurotransmitters also acting in our brain which will hamper the function of the brain. So lot of new knowledge is coming daily. We can find out with the help of our Google many books like this. That is, what is the role of brain in language learning? How the particular aspect of each skill wise, it is this knowledge of brain and language is growing day by day. There are many important books in the market as well as in net. Free e-books are available. If anybody wants to do research in this area, that is cognitive neuroscience, it is gaining momentum in the well-developed countries. In Indian institutions like National Brain Research Center, NBRC, NIMHANS, and some other IITs and all. The research related to language and brain, it is a very good and promising area of research. In all developed countries, they have set up these language, brain and cognitive science centers. Now it is very much possible for us to carry out abroad also important researches so that they have a very good future in the coming era. So dear friends, I think I have given some introduction. I could not give you all the aspects, that whatever I know, whatever I gathered information from neuroscience and cognitive science point of view, that brain has lot to tell us about our language aspects. There is lot of research that are going on, the role of brain and language learning, and the important parts in our brain which play a dominant role in language learning in all the skills. So just I have given an outline of the role of brain in the language. And with this, I think I can wind up. Just a small session. I'm motivating you, the educators and teachers, teacher educators and friends, to go, and it is up to you to get knowledge in this aspect. It is very, very fascinating and interesting area of research. So, thank you so much. I thank once again the organizers. I thank the people who listen to this lecture. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Jahitha, ma'am, for that excellent and very informative talk on brain and the language. Thank you to all our viewers. And I request you to watch our Detox Disruptive Literacy Movement by Global Dream, which is an initiative by Dr. Sunita Gandhi since 2014. This is to ensure everyone's participation in helping India achieve total literacy by a people's movement. Let each one teach one to bring foundational literacy and numeracy. We have programs every day on this, talks every day on this. So to view these, please phone 740-840-1000. Thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you
Thank you,
everybody
sir.
for watching.
Thank
See
you
you in the
for
afternoon.
the opportunity.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Thank you.